Protecting time in advance through a process called time locking can be a game-changing behaviour when it comes to making time in advance for you in your priority areas. Time locking means carving out a specified period of time to devote to an important task that demands your best energy and undivided attention. It basically means that you're disciplining yourself to have no interruptions, unless of course there's a real emergency. Why is time locking so important for your priority areas? Well, let me tell you the Big Rock story. In the Big Rock story, which I'd like to attribute to Stephen Covey and Hiram Smith, a time management consultant is giving a talk to a group of students. The time management consultant proceeds to bring out a jar, which he fills with big rocks. And those big rocks fall within the jar. And he asks the students, "Is my jar full now?" There's always one goody two-shoes student in the class who says, Sir, your jar is full." But the time management consultant says, "Actually, it's not." And he pulls out a bag of pebbles from underneath the table and pours the pebbles into the jar. And those pebbles fall between all the big rocks. And he asks, "Is the jar full now?" And the student's starting to cotton onto the story, going, "Probably not." And sure enough, the time management consultant brings out a bag of sand and pours the sand into the jar. And that sand falls between all the big rocks and all the tiny pebbles. And he asks, "Is my jar full now?" Students again thinking, "Oh, probably not." And sure enough, the time management consultant brings out a cup of water and pours the water into the jar. And the water fills right to the top. And he says to the students, "My jar is full now. What's the moral of the story?" And the same goody two-shoes student says, Sir, the moral of the story is, no matter how full your day, you can always fit more in." And the time management consultant goes, "No, that's not the moral of the story. The moral of the story is that if I had firstly filled up my jar with the same amount of water," so let me draw the jar here. If I had filled it with the same amount of water, let's say here, then I'd put the sand in. So the sand would fall to the bottom. And the water would rise a little. Then I put in the pebbles. So here are the pebbles. The pebbles fall on top of the sand. And the water would rise a bit more. And then I pour in the big rocks. Here are the big rocks. The water would rise to the top. The moral of the story here is that if we fill up our jar or our day with all the little stuff, the water, the sand, the pebbles, then we're not going to get our big rocks in. Your big rocks are a couple of those priority areas that you put into your quarterly plan, whether in the personal space or in the workspace. In the personal space, your big rocks might be spending time with your family. It might be the pursuit of your own health goals or well-being. In the workplace, it'll be the pursuit of those activities that you get being measured on that align with your KPIs. What this story demonstrates is that if we don't get those big rocks in first, then we risk the trivial many, the sand, water, pebbles, crowding out those things that are most important. From a calendar management point of view, you've already drawn up your quarterly plan. Now, what you'd like to do, or what would be a good step to do, is to actually think about how much time you need to be dedicating in your big rocks, which you've written in column 4 of your quarterly plan. and try to pre-protect that time into your calendar. So there's two actions that come out of this. One is try to pre-protect your calendar, creating placeholders for that big rock time. In the weekly plan, we'll get much, much more specific around how we spend that time, and we'll go through quite a robust process. The second takeaway is that if we don't get these into the calendar first, the big rocks, then we risk being at the mercy of the trivial many crowding out those vital few. Now, the consequence of this is that we don't get to pursue, or we don't get to spend our time on the stuff that matters. And that's a bit of a problem, because these are the things that we tend to procrastinate on, those big rocks. We don't tend to procrastinate on the little stuff, the water, the sand, the pebbles. They tend to be easy. They tend to be things we like. They tend to be things that are a short little time frame, 5-minute task here, 20-minute task there. What we do procrastinate on is the big stuff. So by getting them into the calendar and pre-protecting the time and committing to that time, we're far more likely to do them.